Hello again, this is Chase Palagi recording live and broadcasting at your leisure. Thank you for tuning in, and today we are going to take a look at the Benchmade 940-1601, which is a cabelas exclusive. Firstly, I'd like to thank my buddy from Denmark, Mr. Kim Ingman, for making this review possible. Now, some of you may know that I've already reviewed the 940-1, which is just a slightly different variant of this knife. Now, although initially I had some slight trouble on the fit and finish side, this one does not share that aspect, and we'll address this momentarily. The 940 series is one of my all-time favorite folding knife designs out there, and out of all of them, this gets carried the most. In fact, I'm carrying it today. Simply put, this knife is the embodiment of function, class, and carryability. It's an easy choice as its dimensions and weight are so well proportioned you don't even know it's on you until you need it. Not to mention the ease of one-handed manipulation, as is normally the case when I reach for my knife. There's not any single attribute, but the right combination of several attributes that helps capture the essence of excellence here. Since I've already reviewed this, I may repeat some things, but I'd like to focus a bit more on the details of this particular design, and today we'll be nitpicking excellence, gentlemen, so let's go ahead and get started. Just like the rest of the 940 series, Mr. Warren Osborne went with this very unique reverse Tano blade profile. The thickness of the blade sort of tapers off as we approach this clip, then it thickens back up as we approach the tip. This blade choice prevents it from being an optimum slicer, but it is a very functional and rugged design that yields excellent utility. One thing you notice immediately is the beautiful wooden bolster. It adds a super cool touch and the right amount of contrast against the carbon fiber. This seems to incorporate kind of a retro look and feel to it. I think it looks fantastic. They really seem to work well together aesthetically. Then again, I'm a huge fan of carbon fiber scales. The wood just kind of adds a nice flair. Although I was unable to confirm the species, or even the class for that matter, I was able to confirm that it is stabilized wood. For those who aren't familiar with the process, they submerge the wood in a solution, then they use high-pressure vacuums to ensure complete saturation. Then it's cured with a heating process which turns the once liquid solution into a solid. This results in a much more durable and maintenance-free product. Be that as it may, carbon fiber is still a much more durable material. I find it interesting that they designed it that way, as the bolster area is the stress point and is normally reinforced at the pivot. With the carbon fiber being the stronger material, one would think they'd swap the placement of the wood and carbon fiber, or perhaps just have wood inlays. However, the point's probably moot, as this particular knife sports steel liners. Speaking of which, I've always appreciated the way they've done their liners. Notice how they're heavier up in the pivot area, and then they bottleneck until about 3/4 of the way down where they end. I think this design allows for all the strength that you'd ever need, all the while keeping the weight down. Speaking of weight, this one is actually a bit heavier. The 940-1 weighs in at about 2.4 ounces. This one comes in at 3.47 ounces. So it weighs over an ounce more. This doesn't matter to me one bit, but as I said, we're going to nitpick today. Anyway, this got me thinking, the 1 ounce is pretty substantial when dealing with the same knife design. I was wondering if the wood was solely responsible for this. When I decided against it, I was forced to do a comparison and noticed that the gradient toward the edges of the scales isn't nearly as aggressive on the 1601. This results in a thicker handle scale, which likely accounts for at least part of the deficit. Now let's talk steel a minute here. Another very interesting design choice is the steel they decided to go with. Now please don't think I'm bad-mouthing D2 because I'm not. In fact, it has served me very well in other knives. I'm simply surprised that of all the choices they could have gone with, D2 seems very odd for a knife in this price range. For those who aren't familiar with its characteristics, it's a semi-stainless tool still with pretty decent wear resistance. I believe 13% chromium is the threshold to be considered stainless in most cases, and D2 usually runs around 11, 12% maybe. Blades usually run a bit harder in D2, somewhere from 60, 61, 62 on the Rockwell scale, somewhere in there. I'm remembering this from about 4 years ago, guys, so don't hold me to it. But incidentally, I do remember researching this steel when I purchased the K-Bar D2 Extreme. Long story short, all I heard from guys was that D2 was a nightmare to sharpen, and if you wanted to, you needed diamond stones, and even then you couldn't get a nice sharp refined edge because the carbides made it too toothy. Oh, and also it was way too brittle. Now, please believe me when I say almost every bit of this is misinformation. Imagine that, huh? I suppose if you were used to working with like super low-end steels, it may require a bit more work than you're used to, but it's not challenging in the least. It certainly doesn't require diamond stones, and it takes a wonderful edge, carbides notwithstanding. As far as brittleness, that's obviously relative. Yes, it would be too brittle for my liking in a heavy 9-inch survival wilderness blade, but not in a medium to small fixed blade, and certainly not in a folding knife. So if I had to guess, I bet they went with it because it exhibits excellent qualities for its lower price point, and one of the easier steels to heat treat, as it is an air hardening steel that is not susceptible to warping during this process. In short, I believe it will serve most anyone very well. However, it is a steel you'd expect to see in a knife, maybe half its price. As a harder steel, though, it is ideal for folding knives. The action was smooth out of box. However, I went in and smoothed everything out even further as per the owner's request. I really like the action in this knife. I'm not sure what makes it so great. It's not like it's riding on ball bearings or anything. We have what has become the standard phosphor bronze washers here. The axis lock adds tremendously to its charm, which is no surprise to most who are familiar with them. And of course, it has dual thumb studs, which are removable for sharpening. Centering is dead nuts on, which is nice to see in light of mine being permanently off-center. One thing I noted is the remainder of the screws peeking out isn't as pronounced on this one. Probably, I'd say that's likely due to the thicker scales we noted earlier. Another departure from the norm is these brushed satin stainless steel barrel spacers, which are very becoming, I might add. They really seem to tie everything together rather nicely. Notice the feeble attempt at jimping, both on the top and the bottom here. This is just fine for me, as I've never found the need for jimping in a knife like this. Honestly, I think it was more of an aesthetic addition to break up the monotony, so to speak, and it does just that. So from that standpoint, I feel they are a welcome attribute. The pocket clip is of the black oxide split arrow variety. These clips are very wear resistant, and when they do start to wear, it actually adds character instead of looking like a child took a key to the paint of your car. I don't mind the split arrow clip at all. In fact, it has kind of become kind of classic for Benchmade. That being said, the tension on this particular one is not quite as rigid as the clip on my Dash 1. I only bring this up as this is a knife that would absolutely make me sick if I lost it. The good news is Benchmade is normally pretty good about sending different clips to their customers. It is tip-up carry and switchable from right to left-hand carry for those interested and or affected by this. So all the function of the other 940s with just a nice beautiful twist. So what's the verdict? As much as I absolutely love this knife, I have always felt that the price of the 940 series was just a tad steep. The D2 steel choice on the 1601 reinforces my sentiments on the issue. The form factor has always been regarded as a very desirable attribute in the 940 series, and nothing has really changed here. However, the incredible lightweight properties has also been a very desirable aspect. and with almost a 50% increase in said weight, this may be a strike against it for those concerned with these minor details. I will say it feels great, it carries just as well as any other 940, so frankly it's a non-issue to me. The Benchmade 940-1601 Cabela's exclusive is as functional as it is collectible. If you're a fan of the 940 series, this may be a very nice addition to your collection. Or perhaps, another option that works well with the particular apparel that you may be wearing. This knife strikes a fine balance between a classy EDC blade and a functional high-end hard user, as it is still a 940 after all, guys. It is a unique and elegant option, which I honestly thought was part of their Gold series initially. But since this is an exclusive, this 1601 may last a couple runs or a couple years. It'll just depend on Cabela's and perhaps, how well the knife does. With this in mind, if this is one you really want, you may want to pick one of these up just in case. At any rate, thank you guys for sticking with me through this review. As always, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave those down below. If you're new to the channel and enjoyed the video, I invite you to subscribe by clicking the watermark in the corner there. Till next time, this is Palagi, signing off.